Yeah.
Pick up everything.
Sweet. If you need to adjust your mic too, just grab onto it, take it where you need to, that kind of thing.
Okay,
So,
not bad. Can I unplug it for a second?
yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, you gotta pull
Yeah,
this up.
I think I need that. Because this cord is,
Is it right in your way?
well, I think it actually was,
Mm.
I don't know where to put it. It's,
Is the headphones in the way too? Oh.
there we go. It's just a little short leash. There we go.
There we go.
Now we in business.
There we go.
Let's go.
Alright. Alright.
Alright, man, let's go.
Alright, you ready to go?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I'm gonna start off with the intro song and kind of just go through the rest.
I'm excited. Let's run it.
Let's do it. Let's run it. Here we go. Just something I found off the internet, you know what I mean?
I love it, though.
Just something I found off the internet, but something to put on there, you know what I
That
mean?
sounds good.
Thank you.
I like that.
Alright. Pastor Beau.
My man.
Let's go,
My
man.
man.
Long time coming, right?
Dude, we've been trying for
let's
2
go,
years,
bro.
man.
2
We've been
years.
trying.
We finally made it happen, bro.
Let's go, bro.
Well, first off, I really appreciate your time because you know your time is money. Your time is valuable. It's everything. You know, you're a busy man, so thank you for taking the time for just a regular guy like me and making it happen. So I really appreciate it.
Dude, it's my honor, man. I'm proud of you and your family and everything you're doing, man. You've come a long way.
I appreciate that.
Excited to be a part of your journey, bro.
So I'll start off with just to introduce yourself a little bit, right? Pastor Beau, kind of what you do, what you're about, kind of things. So.
Yeah, Pastor Beau. You can just call me Beau. Norman. Married to Megan. We have 4 kids. 2 girls, 2 boys. So Chloe, Jace, Briley, and Benny. And big athletics are a big part of the season of life for my kids, and so it's a big part of our journey as well. We're the lead pastors of the Hill Church, so we're a multi-site church in rural America, but really Southwest Missouri. And then within that, we do a few other things. We've got an organization called Rural Revival, where we're just trying to bring revival to rural America, so that helping pastors as well as serve with Church Boom and a few other things, just trying to bring life and hope and help to the church in America, bro.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Can you switch your mic? Alright, good. I'm not used to doing this on a big scale with guests and stuff, kind of like what I told you. So when it's going, I'm like, is it? I hope it's working.
Can we hear it? Yeah, for sure.
No, that's great, man. You've been doing a lot these past couple of years. I started coming to the Hill like what 2018 or something like that, and the way you've expanded the church, it's insane.
I appreciate
And that takes a lot of vision and a God call, man. So that's all you, man. What I'm really curious about, I was curious about this. When did you first feel called to be a pastor?
Yeah, bro, great question. I was 6.
Okay.
No joke, man. So I remember being about 6 years old, and people ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And tell them I'll be a pastor. And they would laugh, because I'm a little kid, and they're high school or college kids and older. I'm like, I'm going to be a pastor. Well, then I learned about money, and I didn't want to be a pastor anymore. And so I was going to make a lot of that. Anyhow, probably I was in sales, 2004 or 5, that I felt like that the season was now, that it was time to really start to pursue what God was doing, and that started in the form of youth pastoring, and I loved it, man. I never really set out to be a pastor. Like when I would talk to other youth pastors and they would say, yeah, you're a youth pastor and then you're a pastor, I was like, man, I don't want any part of that part. I just want to love on youth and serve them and go to their ball games and hang out with them and with my wife and I. And then of course God shifts things and has the right to put us where He wants us. And
dude, that's awesome, because usually it can be a little bit different for some people, right? Like usually they're looking for the main congregations and being head pastors and stuff. But you're like, no, I really want to stick to the youth, and I really love this. But then God called you to bigger and better things.
It's true, man. I feel like the Lord helped me to understand. I was teaching something similar one time at a conference, and I said, man, my heart was to serve another man's dream. And as I was serving another man's dream, God gave me a dream of my own. And I think sometimes early, and to this day, that's why Church Boom, that's why I serve in Church Boom, because I feel like the Lord convicted me that it's easy as a leader to rally people to serve our vision. And so the Lord said, you're always going to serve another man's field as well. You always need to serve other people's vision as well. And so anyhow, we've tried to stay authentic to that heart, to say, okay, we're doing what God's called us to do in the kingdom, and people are coming alongside, and we couldn't do it without them. You said it's really everybody else that's made this happen. I just get to sound the war cry, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm always trying to serve other organizations as well, and trying to help other dreams come true. I'm a JV assistant basketball coach. Well, you're never a JV assistant basketball coach for the glory. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I'm like, dude, I want to help the head coach and have fun with him and hang out and do whatever I can do for the team through him to, in that case, win some games. But
maybe,
right. So
that's
man.
Cool. That's cool. So what's it like being so involved in like your kids' sports? Because you came from an athletic background, right?
Yeah, I couldn't wait, to be honest with you. I was probably coaching my son, well, most of his life off and on, but I was coaching him in kindergarten, I think, playing baseball. And I'm loud, bro. I yell when I take out the trash. I'm just loud. I'm full of energy. I don't know if you knew that about me.
What's the best part about you?
You say Megan, and you say you're recovering introverts. I say I'm a recovering extrovert, right? Because the extreme on anything is usually unhealthy. And so I was probably the extreme on the extrovert side. But I'm yelling at the kids, not like angry, but like, go, go, go. So I'm just loud. And I come over to the dugout, and my wife, she's keeping a book, and she looks at me and she said, you really shouldn't coach this age. So I kind of took a step back, but now that they're junior high and high school, I'm having a blast, man, just working with them and the other boys and helping them hone their skills, get better at the game.
Be
so,
a mentor and stuff.
Yeah, arguing with refs, I love that. That's a blast for me,
I bet you're their favorite.
Yeah, we have a good, most of them we have a pretty relationship, so I get them laughing, and then we'll as a matter of fact, one of them we were disagreeing after the game. We probably had a 30-minute conversation about the word, and kind of joking about different things. It was a blast, though. So yeah, man, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Next question I have, I'm really curious about this too. Like, you've been in ministry for many, many years, obviously. Mm-hmm. So how did your understanding of God and the church kind of evolve over time?
Man, that's a great question, bro.
Complicated.
Yeah. I was on a conversation this morning with one of my really dear friends, and we were talking, and I won't get into the specifics of what it was, but it was really about the general idea was how we evolve. There wasn't the conversation, but that was where my headspace was at. And early on, I would have probably thought differently about this. But as I've gotten older, I guess you'd say, I think I'm moving to this place that I'm like, we just got to get people to Jesus. I love teaching and diving into we say that the minors, like major on the major, minor on the minors. I love digging into the minors. But at the end of the day, for me as a pastor, we got to get people to Jesus. We got to get whatever the story is. If I'm reading Nahum, we got to get Nahum. We got to get it to the cross. Because at the end of the day, that's hope. Right, hope is found in the cross. Hope is found in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so, as well as strategy, I think that's an area early on I would have said, I just want to tell people that Jesus loves them, and they're going to hell but don't have to. Big grand scheme of things. Right. But over the years, I've learned the importance of being strategic. I tell people this all the time. We first planted our first campus. There was nothing strategic about it. It was just all spirit-led, which I'm all for being spirit-led life. Paul talks about that a lot. But at the same time, that doesn't dismiss strategy. And so now I'm realizing strategy and spirit can actually agree. In Genesis 1, right, the spirit hovered above the waters of the deep. Now, the earth was formless and void, but the spirit hovered above the waters of the deep. And then there was a strategy of how he wanted life to be formed. And it didn't start with life, it started with light. We could preach,
Absolutely, yeah.
But it didn't start with life, it started with light. And so it was spirit spoken, spirit led, but it was led with strategy. And so I think that would be the biggest thing as far as leadership or development or campus stuff. It was, we're going to be spirit led, but we're going to be very intentional with strategy. So even with like Web City or the next campus we're launching, earlier on I would have said we're going to launch it on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, but now I'm like, okay, there's steps that we have to walk through to make sure people are ready, the teams are ready, and on and on and on. Right. So that for me was the biggest, has been one of the, not maybe the biggest, but one of the bigger things that I've grown in, I would say. If that makes sense. Yeah,
I think that's important though, because like strategy and game plan is absolutely everything, right?
Come on.
Especially when you're probably building a church and stuff like that. Not a lot of people know about that. And even though it's not a business, at the same time, if you don't operate it kind of similar to it, you're just gonna go in the hole.
That's right.
So you have, especially with a team and people, like you have to be very intentional with every single thing that you're doing. I think that's everything in life, though, right?
100%. And this business, like, people, after it's done, they can choose to decide if they're going to financially support it or not. If I open a restaurant, I don't have to cook for them if they're not going to pay. You know what I mean? Whereas in ministry, it's like it's all outgo on the front end by faith. You know what I mean? Spirit led. But that's the importance, to your point. That's the importance of being strategic about it, positioning ourselves. That it's not about, obviously it's not about money, it's about people encountering Christ. But when you do, there are those aspects that does mirror business a lot, and that you have to plan and have to have policies and all those things in order, so checks and balances, so that when tithe happens or offerings happen, we can be the best kingdom stewards of that, that we can.
Right, absolutely. Like, strategy is everything, right? Like kind of like what we're talking about, and even like be vulnerable like myself. I remember messaging you way back in the day, like 2019 or something like that. Like I heard you on the stage, and I'm like, yo, I want to do that.
Let's
like
go.
Who doesn't want to grab a microphone and get on stage and preach, though, right? But then you kind of like, let's start in the kids ministry. Let's build up a little bit first and go from there. And I think a lot of people take that and be like really discouraged. Like he doesn't want me up there. But at the same time, it's all strategy. Right. You may not be ready for that. And there's a lot of steps to go into that. It could be your calling, but I think those steps and going through what God really wants you to go through there is the most important thing. Because you can let anyone on the stage and they're like, this is it. Like I have everything else what it takes, Even though it could be true, you got a lot of things going for you, those steps are really important.
Oh, brother, they're not just important, right? They're essential. Yeah. We, myself, I started as a youth pastor, and so I preached a lot of sermons that no one ever heard. You know what I mean? And I mean that not just in youth, but I mean as I'm reading my word, I'm like, I prepared sermons that I've never preached. And so I think what happens a lot of times, we're talking about church, right? Yeah. But I really think this is a lot of kingdom. I think that with God, what he does in the private place eventually is proved in the public place. Does that make sense? Yes. And so what happens is people want to pass the private place, and not because they don't love Jesus or because they're arrogant. That's not the case at all. But we, in haste, we pass the private place and we get to the public place too early. And what happens is our talent takes us where our character can't keep us, right? And so that's the importance of David. It was 22 years, right? Samuel anoints him king, and the next thing he does is go back into the field to shepherd the same sheep. How ticked would you have been? I'm a new king, Saul, get out of the way, move, get out the way. But it was 22 years after that it was realized. So I just think, again, it's God saying a couple things. Can you be faithful in the field that you're in, A? And if we're not faithful with the field that's in front of us, why would he ever promote us to the next? And then the other half of that, again, I think is, it was really in those private places that God proved David's heart, so that when the public light was on him, he could shine. Or reflect, actually. It's when the public light was on, he could reflect the glory of God. But also, for David, when he sinned, he had that private place experience, so that when sin came with Bathsheba, or numbering the fighting man, or whatever it may be, his heart was right. So that when correction came, and when conviction came and correction came, he was ready to get it right. Versus him becoming maybe arrogant and being like Saul. When correction came to Saul, Saul said, no, I'm the king and I'll do what I want. Basically, that's the BJV, right? Beau version. For David, when correction and conviction came, man, he humbled himself and went to prayer, right? Saul went to praise, praising himself. David went to prayer. And so, anyhow, to your point, I think that I've had that a lot over the years, and just recently I had a conversation with a guy, and the same thing we tell him. He said, "Man, I want to do what you do. How do I do it?" I'm like, "Man, for me, I served in any capacity that I could serve in. I read my Bible all the time and I listened to preaching, and so that's all I did,
That's good.
And so private place positions you for public place. So
I think even Jesus kind of went through some of that too, right? Like with that
Say
first miracle with changing the water into wine, and how they did in the back rooms there, so that way they can taste it out in the wedding banquet. But it wasn't like who did this, and everyone knew it was him at first,
right?
And it led to so many more after that, right?
Yeah, so good, so good, bro. Absolutely.
I think that like what's done in the private can eventually come out to the public when you're ready for it.
That's right. It's proved in the public. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
So awesome, man. Again, you've been in ministry for so long. You've been a pastor for so long. Like the church is growing. How do you approach like doubt or skepticism? Because I'm sure you're met by it. Like that's got to be rough. And like, how would you approach something like that?
So clarifying question: personal doubt or doubt from people?
Both.
Okay. Personal doubt, I think, is the harder one to deal with.
Yeah.
Right, because you can't leave it, you can't escape it. It's in your head, and that's why it's by faith. We say something a lot that says talk yourself into it. That's what faith does. Faith says that's a giant I can't beat him. I'm sorry, not faith, but doubt says that's a fear. Our failures, our feelings say that's a giant I can't beat him. Faith says, okay, but I killed the lion and the bear.
Right.
So God hasn't. He didn't. I say it like this: He didn't lead me here to leave me here. And I think sometimes we forget that if we truly believe that He's led us to this point, He's not leading us at this point, right? Because He's going to finish every good work that He began in us, right? And so for me, on the personal doubt side, happens all the time. I think sometimes people look and maybe say, "You're full of faith and you never doubt." Man, join me, pick a day and pick a time, and I'm probably in some form or fashion seeing or feeling doubt. And I think it's by faith, and I think we battle our thoughts with the Word, right? We battle worship and doubt or anxiety. I heard they come from the same place in our brain, so they can't coexist. So when I'm doubting or I'm dealing with anxiety, if I'll move worry to worship, I can't do them both at the same time because they come from the same place in my mind, literally. And so one way we overcome doubt is by turning our worry into worship, right? And worship happens when I remind myself of what He has done, and it tells me what He's gonna do, right? That's the formula for worship. And so that's how it become personal. I think in the public, it stinks, man. It stinks for people to talk bad about you and say hurtful things. And gosh, I wish I could say I have no experience there, but it happens all the time. And I think you have to know. For Beau, I feel like I have had to know where my heart's at from the beginning. You know what I mean? And know that anything we've done has been to make Jesus famous. That's our saying. It's our mission statement, is make Jesus famous. It wasn't a brand, right? It wasn't something catchy that I was like, man, I want to make. I get lots of hate for that saying, believe it or not. People all the time, they're like, Jesus doesn't want fame.
I've seen some things.
Yeah, I'm like, and I don't. If haters on Facebook and social media, I don't spend a lot of time because I don't owe them anything. You know what I mean? And so my rule is I'll respond once and then I ain't got time to keep it up.
Probably the best way to do it, honestly.
Yeah. Because sometimes people want to know. They're like, where does that come from? We share some scriptures, and it's Psalm 45:17. Don't let me pass from this earth without making your name. I hate we can't go on this door. Just pick that last question up. So social media.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Make Jesus famous.
Make Jesus famous. So we've had lots of hate on that on social media. So kind of my rule of thumb is that I respond once and then I kind of leave it alone because I don't owe anyone anything. If they're in my church, they can come to me. Obviously, if they're not, that's okay. So Psalm 45:17 says, "Don't let me pass from this earth without making your name known or famous among all generations." So I'm like, my God, that sounds pretty important. You know what I mean? Literally, the Great Commission is to make His name famous, known. Make disciples of all nations. The Greek, it would talk about Jesus, it would say that there was a holy fame. When it says that there was word spread about him, it's a holy fame would be the kind of the Greek etymology there. There's a holy fame that spread about him through the region. Well, man, if people are, we're making LeBron James famous, you know,
Right.
we're making, I'm gonna pick an actor, you know, famous. Man, how much more important is the Savior of our eternal souls, you know?
Right,
So for me, I doubled down. I'm like, no, man, I'm gonna make him famous. You don't have to. And then what it comes down to is people usually don't understand fame, and I'll define it real fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't understand the definition of fame. The literal, according to the American Heritage Dictionary, says the state of being widely known, recognized, or of great popular interest. I want people interested in Jesus.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I want him known and recognized. And so for me, it comes down to this place of, I know my heart's right there.
Yeah.
So just because you have a tainted view of what the word fame means doesn't mean that he doesn't need to be made famous.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Or whatever it may
absolutely.
be. And then the other thing is, Megan always says, you gotta let your character speak. And so when rumors go, or when people say, you know, this has happened because of fill in the blank, I don't know, dogs don't bark at a parked car. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know, Brandon, as God continues to elevate you, dogs are gonna bark. And it's really just a sign that you're going somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they don't bark at a parked car, right? So most of the time, people only pick at what's moving. And so you just kind of got to go, yeah, I know from the beginning, my heart's right there. I know from the beginning. I mean, they weren't there when I was going into detention, not because I was in trouble. I was sneaking into detention to talk to the detention kids about Jesus instead of going to recess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, I know that that's been my life since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
You know, so when people hate it, it doesn't feel good. But skepticism's part of it, I think. And I live by that. They did it to Jesus.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm in good company. I guess you're in good company.
Yeah. And understanding where that comes from, because even though the doubt and the words itself may come from people, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's fully their intention, but that can definitely be from the enemy.
Sure.
Right? Because the enemy, like the enemy is not going to want anything to do with Jesus going out in the world. He knows exactly what his name is, what his mission is, and he wants nothing to do with it. So if he can get people to say things, if he can get, you know, a slander on your name, anything to discourage you from your calling as lead pastor, you know, podcaster, like anything that you're doing, he's going to do it.
That's right.
You know, especially if it means it's going to discourage you and stop you from spreading Jesus out in the world.
Job 42:2 says, no plan of yours, O God, can be thwarted.
Right.
I love it because it's saying the devil can't stop what God's to do.
Yeah.
He can only hope to get us out of position. He can only hope to discourage us to make us quit.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So you're right. I'm high fiving you, man.
Right. Absolutely.
You're so right
Absolutely.
on, bro.
And, and that's the part too, because like we can stop ourselves, but God's never gonna stop. If we trust in Him, like you said, you know where your heart is. Your heart is grounded in God. Nothing can stop you at that point.
Come on.
You know. So
that's it.
There it is, right there. There it is. All right, man. What's the most important quality of leaders? You deal with leaders all the time. What is one thing you can say, like, the most important quality is this?
It's a great question, man. I was talking to a friend of mine that's, his best friend is a famous, widely known, whatever you want to call it, pastor. I mean, multiple thousands of people in his church. And we were talking one day, not about him, just talking. And he said, people always ask me, what built that church? It's his best friend. This is a pastor friend of mine. His best friend is the mega church pastor. And he said, people say, was it favor? He said, no, it wasn't favor, because bad character will eat favor for breakfast. You know what I mean? And so for me, when I say one, it probably would be, you know, I think about Solomon, and when, you know, the angel comes to him and says, what do you want? He says, I need wisdom. I think wisdom on how to navigate situations, how to navigate people, how to steward resource, how to on and on. Man, I think wisdom is probably, it's got to be there, you know what I mean? And I can put a slash there, character, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive, meaning if I have good wisdom, right, hopefully that puts me in position to make sure my character stays good. So, you know, some of the rules in my life that have kept my character good over 20 years, you know, so that I'm free from things, it really comes from wisdom. Does that make sense? So, you know, a lot of times when I'm working with people, some of they'll be in a situation that's unfortunate, without going into any detail. Most of the time, it didn't start because they had bad character, right? It started because they didn't make a wise decision. Does that make sense? And so I know that maybe is not like fire, you know, or not like catchy, but I'm just like, man, I think if we can operate, now obviously Solomon, wisdom, obviously his character began to slip, you know what I mean? That's why I'm like, there could be a slashy there, you know? But I think if we operate from a place of wisdom and character, I think we're gonna have healthy marriages. You know, at the end of the day, doesn't matter what we build, you know. Do you know who Headspace is? That's Moses' Egyptian mom.
Okay.
And Moses' Egyptian mom, by tradition, she became, whenever the Pharaoh before her died, her husband, her dad died, she took over until her son could take over, and was one of the most famed empresses or Pharaoh, you know, lady pharaohs of all time, right? You should look her up sometime. It's a pretty cool story. But the tradition is she even turned a lot of Egyptian gods turned the faith into more of a Hebraic type faith, right? And she built roadways, she built infrastructure, like she was known for that. But I think it's fascinating that you don't know her name. Because what I think is key isn't what you build, it's who you raise. And you know her son's name. And I think sometimes when it comes to ministry and life, we focus so much on what we're building versus who we're building. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like our model isn't on the what, it's on the who.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Our focus. So both with my personal children, as well as the men and women in our churches, man, we're less concerned with, and we are trying to build a what. I'd be lying if I said we weren't. We do brand hard, you know, we got merch, we do all those things, you know. So I'm not saying we don't build a what, I'm just saying that's not why. You know, our
it's
function.
your why.
Yeah, our why is who, you know, we want to build the who, because again, it's for the kingdom, it's less about what you build and it's more about who you build.
I love that. You know exactly what your cornerstone is, so that's what makes it everything. Another thing I want to talk a little bit, and I know this is a hard one because this was such a hard season for everyone, but especially pastors, church people, COVID times, man. When that stuff started going on, what was going through your mind, and like, how did you deal with the challenges of you can't have public gatherings, you can't do this stuff, a lot of it's online now. What was the game plan? What was the mindset? What was that like?
Yeah, we were thankfully really positioned for it in the sense of like, obviously we had to tighten up and be more intentional, but as far as pre-recording and all that, we were positioned. I really appreciated the way, at least Missouri's governor, approached that initially. It wasn't, hey, you can't have church. You know, it was, hey, will you give us a few weeks to figure this out? And I mean, as a pastor, my response was going to be the way it was brought. To be quite honest with you, I think my heart was saying, if they come in and say you're not allowed to have church, I'm going to do a video and it's going to say this. I'm going to show up. Don't feel obligated to our teams, employees, all that. No obligation. I'm going to show up and preach. I can't sing, so our worship will be a cappella and it will not be led well. Gosh, I can't run the sound. I used to know how to do everything in church. I don't know how to run our soundboards anymore. I had to call. You had to do some stuff. I'm calling our AV guy. You know, it's just we've grown beyond that. Praise God. But if they had come across with you're not allowed, I think I was going to say no. I have the right to do this. And so for me, the way they approached it was top tier. Man, I thought the initial approach, especially of Missouri's governor, was, hey, listen, give us some time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I thought, man, it's fair. We don't know what we're dealing with. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, I lost people. Obviously, the Church of the Hill lost people during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my mentors, I'm outside his hotel room as he's on a ventilator. I'm outside walking around the backside of this giant hospital. He's on the first floor and I'm looking in and I'm praying over him, you know what I mean? And so it was like, it was hard for everybody. You know what I know what I'm saying? My nerves were, nothing stops fiscally, you know what I mean? Just because you can't gather, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, my electric bill's a little bit less, you know, but you know, our for the most part, our expenses didn't really change. So I was like, God, what's going to happen? And I'll never forget, the Lord used this little lady, one of our campuses, to send me a message on Facebook that just said, hey, Pastor Beau, where can I bring my tithe? And we have online giving set up and all that. But you still, you know, the reality is, and so when she sent me that email or that message on Messenger, my heart, the Lord was like, I got this. You know what I mean? You just keep making me famous, and I'll take care of the rest.
That's good.
And so, you know, Jesus spent the 5,000. He wasn't worried about where lunch was coming from. Andrew was. We're gonna feed all these people, right. You know. Jesus knew, you know what I mean. Andrew didn't, and so Andrew's trying to physically reason on how to solve a spiritual problem, right? And so then, of course, we know the story. Jesus said, well, "What do you got?" Well, I got a few loaves and a few fish. Well, let me have it. So I think that's what I felt like I had to do in that season was say, okay, God, you can really have it on another level because I don't know what we're gonna do. So it was, you know, as far as the ministry side of it, it was great. You know, I mean, we had people really ministered to when it was, you know, solely online. Our campus pastors did an incredible job. You know, they were buying groceries and making cookies and leaving it on front steps and doors. And so, you know, for the Hill, anyhow, we actually grew fiscally during that season. Wow. I think we grew systematically in that season. Now, when we came back, obviously there was half the people, you know what I mean? But we're, you know, 5 years later, we're far surpassed any of that we were at 5 years ago. And so, yeah, man, it was a wild season though.
Yeah, it was weird. It was
weird. For sure.
Stores are down.
Yeah.
No toilet paper anywhere.
None anywhere. I was in Texas, man, and I heard about it. We were at the preaching for a buddy of mine, and we were at the big Houston rodeo. Okay. Right. So we go to the Houston rodeo, and it was incredible. The next day they canceled it because of COVID. So it was more south, you know, in major airports, and they're like, this is crazy, there's no toilet paper. So I stopped by a Dollar General somewhere in Oklahoma, I think, and I bought like 6 things of big rolls of toilet paper. And my Megan, she said, why, don't buy into this, like the hype, like don't buy all the toilet paper. She said, we can, if God forbid, we can wash towels. And I said, are you going to wash towels for 3 churches? She said, buy the toilet paper. Buy the toilet paper. I ain't doing that. That ain't my ministry. Anything but that. So yeah, bro, that was such a wild time, you know. That was funny. I forgot about the toilet paper thing, bro. That's awesome.
No, I used to work at a hotel years ago, and the rags and stuff that we would use for like toilets and stuff, they would wash that stuff later, and no, that doesn't feel right. That does not feel right. Not to reuse it. Nope.
Not for sure. Yeah, that's right. New one every time.
Right.
New one every time.
Yeah, for sure. What was your first job ever?
Mowing lawns.
Yeah?
Yeah, mowing lawns. And then I worked at the Orleans Trail Marina would be my first like actual have to clock in, clock out. And then a nursing home after that. I would kind of help the maintenance guy at a nursing home, and then sales.
Okay.
Up until ministry. That's, yeah, man. And there's a bunch of different places that I sold for.
Nice.
But that's the gist of what that looked like for sure. Yeah, man. It was good. I mean, I like to spend money, you know. So I was like, I was motivated to work, you know, and hustle and again, you know, pick up a few yards and, you know, I didn't get rich back then, but my dad had a mower and I had to mow the yard, so I thought if I can mow a couple others, have some, that's right. I'll buy NFL Blitz on my Nintendo 64. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm getting it.
That's right, man. I gotta hustle, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So you're born and raised in Stockton?
No, born in Tulsa.
Born in Tulsa.
Yeah, but raised in Stockton.
Raised in Stockton. So small town, grown. What was it like growing up in a pretty small town? I don't know if you know where I'm from. I ever told you that?
Some of it, yeah.
I grew up in a really small town in New Mexico.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Like real small town. It's called Mora. Okay, it's a really small like Spanish town.
What part?
Out there? Do you know where Las Vegas, New Mexico is? So it's like basically Las Vegas is about an hour and a half away from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and so the small town we grew up in is about maybe 2-ish hours away from there. Really small valley. I always tell Jade it's basically Stockton, just the Mexican version.
Oh really? Okay, so not this side, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
For sure.
New Mexico's beautiful, bro. New
Yeah.
Mexico's beautiful.
Yeah. I haven't been there for a minute, but it's beautiful for sure. So what was it like growing up in a small town?
Well, I loved it, man. I loved it, you know. And even back then, it was a little different in Stockton, but loved the lake town. You know, grew up hunting, fishing a little bit with my buddies, riding bikes and playing football, basketball, baseball in the yard. We had a couple acres by our house, and so for the most part, mine and another buddy's house is where we all hung out. And I mean, we there wasn't probably a Saturday that there wasn't a ball game going on at the Norman house in some form, or in Norman neighborhood in some form or fashion. And so like back then, right, like you're 7, 8 years old, riding your bike to Casey's to get a soda. You know what I mean? And now I can't imagine my 7, 8 year old.
Oh no.
Riding his bike, you know, even in Stockton, you know. But Stockton really hasn't grown much, believe it or not, since I was a kid. Maybe I think the signs that say 1800, Wikipedia says 16 and some change. So we actually lost some people from 2010 to 2020, from the 2020 census. And so, but it was always about the size, you know, give or take. And, you know, school was fun, and obviously athletics were a big part of that for my wife and I both. But you knew everybody, which was good and bad.
Right, good and bad.
Good and bad is you
I
knew
feel
everybody.
that for sure.
You couldn't get away with nothing.
No.
The bad in that is, you know, the good in that is if your tire breaks down, if your car breaks down, or you're something, you know, if you blow a tire. My wife blew a tire. There's a lot of people that know her family. And the bad of that is, there's nothing you can do to get around a lot of it.
Right, you're kind of stuck in it.
I'll have to fix that.
Hello.
What's up, man?
What do you gotta do?
Oh, podcast.
Oh, you're good. Unedited.
Unedited.
This is how we go.
This is how we go.
Absolutely.
Completely. I'm happy you told me that. I was trying to set stuff up for the edit.
No, you're good.
That was Pastor Tim. He's in that just popped in. My kids were the ones before that, and they were like, "Hey, Dad," I'm like, "No, not right now. We're in the middle of this."
Right.
Pastor Tim's the campus pastor here in Stockton.
Yeah.
He's a fivefold shepherd. He's awesome.
Yeah, you guys have been absolutely killing it. Well, I know you gotta leave in 7 minutes. Got one more question.
Yeah,
for you.
please.
All right. So apparently this has been a trend. I just found out about this. I'm kind of curious what your take is on this.
The gorilla would kill me.
You already know.
Is that the question? Let's
go.
Let's go. Okay, ask the question though for them.
Alright, so for the audience, for who doesn't know, 100 humans or a gorilla, who's winning?
Dude, I gotta tell you, I just want to be the last human.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if it's 100 bows, we ain't fighting the gorilla.
We're dead.
We're dead. We ain't fighting the gorilla. And I'm just like, I was thinking of that. I really was, bro. So practically, like, it's so, I mean, there's 100 of us, but we're not allowed to have weapons. I don't have fingernails. Well, I'm gonna bite a gorilla, and I thought maybe we'd win, but we'd have to be the only chance we'd have is strategy, right? Like, okay, we're gonna 15 at a time from every angle, and just hopefully, you know, be able to 15 guys hold his arms.
Exactly.
Maybe, but man, I think the first 15 or 20 are immediately dead. I was thinking about that. I really was.
Yeah.
I was like, man, someone's gonna wrap their arm. That gorilla's gonna bite that dude's arm clean off.
Yeah.
So,
like there's gonna be a couple people that are willing to just sacrifice because that gorilla's gonna take a few out for sure.
That's a fact.
For sure.
It's happening, bro.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I was talking to my guys at the gym yesterday, and I said, well, it depends on their strategy and who's fighting.
That's right.
Because if you have 100 guys that are just deconditioned and stuff, they're probably going down. pounds.
No, but you're fit. 100 Brandons would be fine. You're fit. You're
No,
buff,
no.
but 100 preachers,
Not at all.
we'd be trying to give an altar call. You know?
Try to save that gorilla first, right?
Trying to save the gorilla first, man.
Love it.
Trying to
Love it.
save that gorilla first. Dude, it reminds me of a joke I heard. It's so terrible, dad joke. This guy was running for this bear. Was chasing him, you know, and he's just running, and he had shot at it and missed, and the bear chased him. He dropped his gun. He's just running, and the bear swipes at it and knocks him down, and he falls, and the bear's paws up, and it's ready to come down to kill him. He said, God, just please make this bear a Christian before it eats me. And the bear stopped and paused and looked at him, and then folded his hands and said, Lord, bless this food that I'm about to partake in Jesus' name. It's so stupid, man. It's just my brain tracks that stuff, man. That joke I haven't thought of in 20 years.
I love it. We actually have this friend of ours. We've known him for years, and when we first met him, he's out in Springfield. He would always tell us that he has outrun bears and wrestled bears, and we would just both look at him and say, "You're full of it."
That's right.
That's not right.
Dude, now I will say, my pastor buddy JJ literally got attacked by a bear.
Oh my God.
He was a wilderness guide in Minnesota, right? So they'd heard that this bear was coming in and going through camps. So they've got canoes and they're doing boundary waters and they're hiking it. They're wilderness, bro. Like, ain't no one around.
Right.
If you've ever been to the lakes in northern Minnesota, there's the land of 10,000 lakes, and that's probably an underestimate. It's insane. But anyhow, he said, I'm standing there, I'm going to get something, and this bear pops up. And it roared at me, and I started backing up, and it attacked me. And when I backed up, I landed against this like dead tree, and my hand hit this stick. And the bear got close, like a log that had fallen down. I hit this log, and I smacked it in the head. I mean, it didn't hurt it, but it startled the bear. The bear kind of startled, looked at me, and I was like, roar! And it spooked the bear. The bear ran off like 20 yards. I said, what'd you do next? He said, I ran. I ran down the hill, got the water into the canoe. But it was, I was like, did you beat a bear and won? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go.
Fought a bear hand to hand, so I had him preach for us. That's the way I introduced him.
You know what? Validated.
Validated.
That's it for sure.
Man card.
Sure.
That's it.
For
100 JJs, they beat the gorilla.
There you go.
100 JJs beat the gorilla.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious,
Absolutely.
man.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna let you go here. All right,
Dude, this has been fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it again for sure. Part 2, Part 3, eventually.
Let's go.
We'll keep going with it. But thank you for your time,
Dude, of
Mr.
course.
Beau Norman on the podcast.
Let's
It's
go.
gonna be great stuff. I'm gonna close us out here. Okay. Gotta get that cheesy
I love
outro. You know what I'm saying?
I love it.
Right.
That's a good beat.
Yeah.
It has that Joe Rogan feel.
Seriously. All right, Beau Norman. Till next time.
Dude,
Thanks,
love you,
brother.
homie.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Dude, that was so much fun.
Yes, sir.
What was it for?
He does a podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Spotify and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
he does a good
It's
job.
all
I try
right
to.
professional.
It is. That's what I said.
trying.
Yeah, this guy's
When
killer.
are you leaving?